All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon or good morning, as the case may be. You are welcome to day 2 of the Ask to Win Challenge. This is day 2 of the Ask to Win Challenge. We started yesterday, and this is typically the VIP session. And the VIP session, as we said yesterday, is a special session where we allow comments, we allow you to raise your questions, receive direct responses, from my good self, share your experiences, and receive specific counsel or coaching, as the case may be, to your issues. And so this runs for 1 hour, and then we move on to the general session. And then we deal with a few things there as well. Let me encourage all of us, first and foremost, to please join the private Facebook group, Ask to Win Challenge. I think I sent out the link, to do that to everyone. But you can also find that out by just searching Facebook for the Ask to Win Challenge, group. You would see the Ask to Win Challenge, and you can, join that group. Only those, of course, who are accredited, can join. It's a private group, and you would find some useful materials there. Some of the materials here are being, hosted or provided via that group. So you want to be a part of it. And as you join, share with us. You may want to introduce yourself, and you may want to share with us what your experience, is with each of the sessions that, we hold as the day goes by. Yesterday, specifically for the VIP session, we began, by examining a particular case study. I did say yesterday that the VIP sessions are case study driven, and they provide a more robust basis, for appreciating not just the concept of asking, but the power, that seemingly simple gesture, all right, commands. So, yesterday we started by looking at the subject, ask for what you can't get on your own. And the idea was that fulfillment is not often something anybody can get, on his or her own. And there is a level of achievement, that tends to fall short of fulfillment, but fulfillment itself, can be secured. And we looked at the case of that rich man, the rich young ruler, and I believe that threw up, some very important issues. Today we'll be looking at, the subject, ask for what's impossible. Ask for what's impossible. Ask for what's impossible. Again, another case study. And this time, it's not about fulfillment, it's about entitlement. Okay, ask for what's impossible to give. And by what's impossible to give, what we're talking about is what is impossible for others to give, or what is impossible for you to get from others. One of the reasons that we have challenges asking is because we often, try to assess whether we'll be able to get what we want, what we would love to ask for, whether we can get them from the people that we have in mind. Okay. And so we regard certain things as impossible or near impossible, or if you like, far-fetched. And that affects whether in fact we ask, or it affects our confidence that we will receive if we were to ask. So we want to look at a case very quickly, in this session. And I want to look at the case of, again, somebody you might know very well, and it's the case of the Shunammite woman. She's called the Shunammite woman in the Bible, and that you can read in 2 Kings 8 from verses 1 to 6. 2 Kings 8 from verses 1 to 6. Now, I found this case study particularly interesting because it was a case of somebody stepping forward to make an impossible demand, or at least so it would appear. And you may be able to relate to that. And maybe you have been in certain situations when we reflect on that, story once again, and you think about it from the perspective that we're examining over these 5 days, it would strike you, a number of things will strike you, including how could somebody have gone forward to make this kind of demand. Okay, now the way it went is this woman met a prophet, a man of God, and was very good to the man of God. On occasions, this woman prepared, accommodation for this man of God who comes to town, once in a while. All right. And so what the woman did, noticing that this man came into town from time to time, was she prepared a special place in her home and basically gave the man a blank check. Anytime you come into town, this is your place prepared for you. Just come in. You don't even need to tell us when you are coming. You can use it anytime. And of course, every other thing you need, we will take care of. So that was how good the woman was to this man, who, by the way, didn't ask her for anything. All right, but she took the initiative by herself, and along with her husband, decided to be that good, to be that benevolent towards the man. Of course, she knew that he was a man of God. Sometime later, all right, this woman, the man saw that this woman didn't have, and the husband didn't have a child. And on one of the occasions, the man of God said to them, you're going to have a child. And they thought he was joking, but, then she had a child. And after she had the child, sometime after that, the child had some challenge, and suddenly the child died. And she rose up and just decided to run after the man of God, saying, look, I don't understand what's going on, but this is what has happened. In fact, at that time, she didn't even tell her husband. She carried the child, ran to the man. Long story short, the man of God, ministered to the child, and the child, came back to life. So at a point, and that's where we read this particular aspect, I provided that as a background. Now, at a point, the man of God said to her, look, there is going to be a famine, and this famine is going to last for 7 years. So you need to get out of town with your family because you can't survive while if this famine were to catch you here. So she left and went to another town. After 7 years had passed, she packed her stuff and came back home. So at the time she came back home, she then went to the king, who, by the way, didn't know her. And that's after 7 years, she went to the king and went to ask for her land from the king. She went to ask for her land. So obviously she had, she was a woman of means. She had property, she had land, and presumably she was, her land was being productively used. So when she came back, she went to ask for her land. And this was somebody who had been away for 7 years. And so when she came back, as she appeared before the king had somebody else in his company. And that somebody else was the servant of a prophet, another, prophet. And the servant apparently was just telling the king about this woman because the king wanted to know some of the feats that the prophet had performed, over the years. Apparently, the king didn't know the prophet. So maybe the king, had just become king or became king after, not knowing this prophet, and obviously not knowing this woman, and having the slightest idea about what land or whatever this woman had. But the woman went to this king that she did not know to say, look, I left here when famine was setting in. I have landed property and I need my land back. So obviously the land must have been taken over. And so there she was. Suddenly, she came to ask for what belonged to her. I don't know what was her state of mind. We can think about it as we discuss this. And it turns out that at the point she got in, her matter was the one being discussed. The things that the prophet had done to her were the ones that the servant of the prophet was talking to the king about. And lo and behold, the king said, oh, immediately the servant of the king saw her. He said, wow, this is the woman I'm talking to you about. And the king said, oh, is it true? And he spoke to the woman, are you the one? The woman confirmed all the things. And the king appointed somebody, an official, to go with the woman and to ensure that the woman's land was given back to her. And not only that, that everything that that land ought to have produced over the 7 years should be given to the woman along with her land. So what do you think? Why is that important for us? Why is it a source, a relevant case study for our subject? It's relevant because the woman went to ask the king for her land. She had not been around. Her land had been taken over, 7 years gone. Suddenly she came back after the famine was over, and she still thought that she could get her land back. How many of us would have done that? She took the step to go and ask for her land from a person she never knew. From a king that didn't know her. But it turns out that as she appeared, she was the subject of discussion. Now, who would have thought that to be what happened to be a possibility? Would you have thought it to be a possibility? What strikes you in this particular instance? What strikes you? Let's have some discussion, please. Let's have comments from your good self. You know, what do you think? Is this something you would have done? Or have you been in this kind of situation before? Would you have been bold enough to go and ask for that land back? That land used to be yours. But 7 years has passed. The government has seized all the land. In any case, they weren't even producing. Olumide, you want to speak? Please go ahead, sir.
Yes, I think maybe before I wouldn't have asked, but now I will ask. But for this woman, I think is that audacity. I mean, to look at all the odds in the face and still go and make that demand.
Yes.
I think, yes. That is it for me, yes.
What does that, would you have, you wouldn't have thought that what she did was possible, that gesture would never have produced the kind of results that she got?
Most likely, yes. I wouldn't have thought she would have gotten anything out of it, especially being a widow.
Correct. So if you had been the woman, you wouldn't have bothered to ask.
No, most likely not.
All right. And so you wouldn't have bothered to ask because all the factors just seem to be, you know, against you. It couldn't have made any sense.
I mean, yes, government has taken it, everything I mean, I would think, well, yes, let this one go.
But the land is still your, it used to be your land. You had the title to the land.
Yes. So, yes, I think, yes, but lately though, I've been seeing that no, nothing really is lost until you agree is lost. So you can still, yes, you can still ask. Yes, you may not necessarily get it, but you should ask.
But do you really lose anything by asking?
I'm beginning to realize that, yes, you don't have anything to lose by asking.
By asking. So the worst that will happen is to say, Madam, you better forget it.
Yes, that's the worst. But it also changes. The worst, who defines the worst, really?
Okay, who defines the worst? Maybe you define the worst. Maybe the one making the demand defines determines the worst. Because, of course, if she didn't step out, she would never get the land.
Yes.
So that's the worst.
Yes.
But the fact that she stepped out means that she stacked the odds against the worst.
Yes.
Making it difficult that for this worst now to materialize, I mean, you know, it will mean that something just doesn't want me to have this land back.
True.
All right, great. So let's look at, Tunji is saying here, is saying mustering the courage to ask for additional vacation. If you look at, you know, his chart, to ask for additional vacation time from my boss scares me, not to talk of asking the highest official in the land for my property. That is profound. That's a profound statement. That is, look, at my level, what is telling us is where I am today. even to ask for additional vacation time. And by the way, the additional vacation time is your entitlement. You are not asking for something that is not your entitlement. You are not, it's not that the company says you are entitled to 20 days, you know, and you're asking for 25 days. No, it's saying maybe I am entitled to 20 days, but I initially asked for 10, but I find that I need to take 2 more, 3 more days. To ask for that additional 2 or 3 more days is a challenge. I need to psych myself up. You know, it requires a lot of courage. I mean, not to talk of going to a king after you have gone for 7 years to go and ask for your land. Hello. So the point that is being made here now is there is a courage dimension. That there is a courage dimension. Okay. And so this woman braced herself up. I mean, what could have made, what was this woman thinking? What was her mindset? How did she regard her ownership of the land? For her to have stepped out, she obviously felt entitled. But the strength of her conviction about her entitlement could have been responsible for the courage. Could have been responsible for the courage. She wasn't ready to, this wasn't a woman she was ready to err on the side, not of caution, but on the side of demanding for her entitlement. So I'm challenging us to see how someone else would have let go. I mean, Olumide said, I probably would say, let this one go. Let this one go. But let this one go. In the end, look at what you are letting go. You are letting go the land, and you are letting go reward on the land for 7 years. Can you imagine somebody being told that go and return her land, but don't only return her land, go and give her what her land would have produced for 7 years? Bear in mind that there were 7 years of famine. There were 7 years of plenty. But now the reward that she's being given is to treat her land as though the land produced under normal circumstances for 7 years. Notice, she went to ask for her land. She didn't go to ask for what the land produced. That's not what she wanted. She wanted her land back. But she got her land plus something else. She got her land plus something else, plus plenty. Everything. Can you do now? Think about it. Is the likelihood that she would be given all the apples and oranges and whatever that her land produced? Most unlikely. But what she's likely to be given is the monetary value of all that the land ought to have produced over 7 years. Because I don't imagine that they would have kept all, you know, the agricultural produce that the land would have produced over 7 years. Or maybe they would take from what the lands are produced or other lands or wherever they were going to get it from. But what seems to make sense is to just monetize. So she got land and she got money. If you recall the case study from yesterday, that young ruler who came to ask, that ruler went away sorrowful. He couldn't do what he was asked to do. But we later discovered that had he done what he was asked to do, he was being set up to receive more than he was asking for. Because we gathered that if he had done what he was asked to do, he would have collected 100% of his money, and then he would have got the eternal life. But he thought he was going to lose all his money. And he wasn't ready to lose his money for the promise of eternal life. Now, there is one thing that I think it may be safe for us to begin to conclude on about this privilege and power of asking from these two instances. And that's the fact that it would appear that if you are bold enough to ask, that if you will take that step, the chances are that you will always get more than you hoped for or than you requested, than not to get at all, or than to get less. Yesterday, the guy if the guy had done what he should do, he would have got 100-fold. That is his riches back ×2, and he would have got the eternal life that had been elusive. In this case, the woman came to ask for her land. She got her land, and she got the equivalent of what her land, under normal circumstances, would have produced for the 7 years that she was not there. So in both cases, by asking, we are seeing that you are invariably positioning yourself to get more than you asked for. To get more than you asked for. There's someone on this platform who is with us. And, there was a brief sharing of some of the ideas that we're talking about here that I was privileged to have with the person. And the same kind of phenomenon, transpired, is in the works. There is what the person wants, but there are other things that are coming along or have come along with the package. But just because the person dared to ask, which was the point? Just because the person dared to ask. So you see that when you don't ask, you are not only taking yourself out of the picture, you are not only deciding that there are things that you need that you are not going to get, you are also taking yourself out from getting the extras that will normally come with asking. It's saying that many times, if we ask and we ask right, if we ask and we ask skillfully, what we end up with is usually more than what we are asking. So that can give us a sense of how we miss out on things. We even think that what we are missing is what we are asking or what we are not asking, when in fact, what we are missing out on are the things that will come with what we're asking, but we didn't even know. That's why when you come into this kind of session, these are the things you learn, that many times, if you will ask, you will end up with more than you expected. One of the things that Jesus said was, he said, if you as earthly fathers, if you won't give your child, a serpent when he asks for egg, all right, he said, how much more will he give the Holy Spirit to them that ask? That's a dimension of benevolence that you can't even put a cost to. He said, how much more? He was making the point that when don't limit the power of asking to even your need, because when you truly do it well, what you will return with will be more than enough to meet your needs. When you look at every example I have come across, that's the phenomenon. That's the phenomenon. All right, that's the phenomenon. So let me go. Okay, so Chiso says not only courage is needed, but more like drunk with the Holy Spirit, like the believers in Acts chapter 2. That's fine. That's fine. But I want to say to you, and I'm going to show it, I'm going to prove it, that it isn't so much your brazen courage, it is your strength of conviction. It is your strength of conviction. You don't make the move that this woman made without a deep-seated conviction that I'm going to ask for it, is my entitlement, I can justify it, and I will do it. Let the king now tell me that is impossible. It's the strength of your conviction. And you know, quite frankly, that when you act drunkenly in the manner that you are talking about, it's also a strength of conviction. Because when you are deeply, when your faith is in place, you will do things that it will surprise even yourself. And that adds to what, what Abiola is saying here, that, in the case of Joshua, he said, be strong and very courageous. Be strong and very courageous. And in many cases, this is not about physical strength. For the woman to go and appear before the king isn't about physical strength. It has nothing to do with physical strength. It is about inner strength. There is no greater source of inner strength than the strength of your conviction about what is before you. There is no greater strength or source of strength than the strength that comes from your faith, your belief in what you are about to do, in the step that you want to take. That's what you see with this woman. That's what you see. She returned. She must have asked, so who is the king in place? They would have told her that king doesn't know you. The previous king has died. Somebody else is there now. So why do you, I need to go and collect my land. Hello, from somebody who doesn't even know you. Please, you better go, and the famine has, we should thank God that the famine has come and gone. You know, let's just continue our lives from there. The woman who said, you are talking your own. Said, does the famine mean that my land is no more my land? No, I'm not asking for them to give me what's on the land. I'm asking for my land. So let me continue from where I stopped. And they say, don't bother. No, who else has done that? So nobody else has done that. He said, well, that's nobody else. But this, what we are talking about is my land. It's an entitlement. I believe that I will get it. I believe that if I get to the king, I can see the king, I explain myself, the king will give me that land. And so imagine when she returns to the same people who would have thought, what you this woman, you're always like that. You're asking, your own is too much. Say, yes, my own is too much. It's because I believe, I know what I'm doing. I know that if I don't ask, I won't get. If I don't ask, nobody is going to come to me and say, you've just returned. You know that your land, come and take. No, nobody is going to do that. They may not even know that is my land is there. I mean, after all, they would have taken over many lands. So I need to step out and make the demand for it. And therein lies the difference. And look at this woman's situation. Maybe this step that she has taken will now be what will open the eyes of some other people in her shoes. So the fact that, wait a minute, so it's possible that one can get this land. They thought it was impossible. They would have thought it was impossible. I mean, you and I would think it to be impossible. And so you see that when you understand this concept, when you are skilled in it, it's a point of differentiation. It's an instrument of differentiation. You will experience things in life that some other people will be dreaming about. They can't experience. Why? Because it takes invoking what you know to be able to experience the same thing, to be able to have the same encounter. This woman, by asking, define the odds to do that simple thing, just to go to the king and ask for what belongs to her. In this case, yesterday we talked about fulfillment. Today is entitlement. Ask for what is impossible. This, everybody would agree, this situation is impossible. But she's entitled. So when you are asking, one of the things that you have to ask yourself, do you qualify for it? Are you entitled? Because when you are entitled, it enhances the chances that you are going to get. When the person that you approach knows that you are entitled to what you're asking, they are more disposed to making it available to you. So it's one of the things you should bear in mind, that when you want to ask, convince yourself that you have good enough reason to ask, to make the demand, to put forward the request. Because nobody is a fool, and don't assume that the persons or the people or the institution that you approach to make your demands are fools. They are going to think, among others, about whether or not there is justification to oblige your request. In the same way that you, at your level, when you deal with requests, if somebody came to you to ask you for something, you are one of the things that you will process, even if it is unconsciously, all right? That, or informally, that you will process in your mind is that, you know, is there a justification? What this person is asking for? Does this person qualify? Is this person entitled? And there will be different ways of assessing entitlement. We're going to look at that as we go on. There are different ways, you know, to look at entitlement. But it is an important factor. So when you think some things are impossible, this should tell you nothing is impossible if you can ask. If you settle that something is impossible because you can justify it in your own mind, and therefore you do not ask, then that's entirely your own choosing. It's the choice that you have made. But it's not the reality. And it undermines you to the extent that you can't leverage the opportunity and the privilege that you have been given to access it. When you read this encounter of this woman, you must come to the conclusion that nothing is impossible after all. Can somebody please tell me, is there something this woman did apart from asking, stepping forward to ask for what she believed belonged to her, for what she believed she was entitled to? Is there anything this woman did? You know, so that we can reflect on this ask that we're talking about. And so that you can understand why that provision that we read yesterday, if you ask, you will receive. So you can understand how powerful that simple statement is. This woman, by my reading, based on the information that is made available to us, did nothing more than to step forward to ask. To ask. That's all she did. She didn't lobby anybody. She didn't pay to even access, you know, the king. She probably went through the process of seeing the king. I imagine there is a process. She didn't send emissaries. She didn't play any games. She did one simple thing. Step forward, ask. Yesterday, we had one or two questions talking about the who. That is, who you ask for is important. And we said, okay, fine. We're going to come to the point where we deal with that expressly. Now, if you want your land back, like this woman wanted her land back in her situation, who should you go to? Please answer me. Who should you go to? Who is the right person to go to? Are we still together? Who should you go to?
Welcome to use Zimmer products. Bluetooth number.
Hello, is somebody speaking to us there?
Bluetooth connected.
All right. Yeah, a decision maker, the highest authority. In that case, you are talking about the king. That's the person to go to, and that's the person she went to. Who else could possibly order that your land be returned to you? That land that has been taken over while you were away during a famine, a national emergency. It had to be the king. And she went straight to the king. So she knew the right person to go to. To go and, where to make her request. The person from whom to ask for what she wanted. So just like we saw yesterday, these two people knew the right people to go and ask. If she had gone to anybody else, I'm sure nobody would have been in a position to promise her land. Nobody. Nobody. And if she had gone to the wrong person, they may even have given her stories. Instead of saying that they are not the right person. I don't know if you have, experienced that before. You go to the wrong person to ask for information or to ask for something. And they will now be telling you stories. I once had a foreign check while I was doing, for a research. I had a research grant many years ago while I was in the university, and I needed to cash. It was a foreign check. It was a dollar check, and I needed to cash it. And at that time, we had some of the students that I was, teaching on the MBA class. They had, there were bankers there, so I approached one of them that was, quite close to me to ask, this is my situation. I need to cash this check. How can you help me? By the time it was done, it was like, it's impossible to cash this check. That, all manner of stories. All manner of stories. Not quite, a couple of days after, I just realized that my wife's relation was working at Citibank. So we called him, and I told him I was coming to see him, that I had a check, if he can help me to. So I came all the way from Ibadan, to Lagos then, and I went to see him in the office. I was working with Citibank then. Long story short, I walked out of the bank with the dollars. I walked out of the bank with what? The dollars. The check was cash right there and then. Somebody else told me it was impossible. But apparently I was asking the wrong person, because he wasn't in a position to help. He wasn't in a position to even tell me whether it was possible or impossible. But out of his ignorance, he put up himself as though he knew what he was talking about. If I had settled for his ignorance, I wouldn't have access to that money. And then I would also have looked like a fool, because I wasn't the first person to get that grant. Okay, even within my immediate department at that time. So what's the point I'm making? It's important to know who to ask. It's part of why there is a skill to this thing. The same way there is listening skills, the same way there is communication skills, the same way that there are other skills, there is a skill to asking. There's a skill to asking. If you look at the case of Esther, and Esther was in a particular precarious situation, very dangerous situation, but she needed to ask for something. She was in dire need, along with all her people, the Jews. She needed not just the attention of the king, she needed to ask the king for something that would spare her life and those of all her people. And when you look at that story, maybe we'll be able to review that, before our 5 days is through. You will see how skillful she was. We would think that, she was just asking. I mean, you keep asking the king to come back for one banquet or the other, come back for a banquet or the other. Ask what you want. Now, the man say, ask what you want. Ask what is it that you want. There's something you want to ask. But she kept at it until she knew the time, the right time to hit the nail on the head. And at the right time, when she asked, it was sure banker. It was sure. She got what she wanted. If you look at that situation again, you will see the principle that I talked about. She even got more than she asked for. She got more, along with her uncle, than they asked for. How will Esther have saved herself and her people if she did not ask? If she didn't ask? Yes, you can say she fasted and all of that. That's preparation. You're allowed to prepare to do your homework. Okay? You're allowed to do your homework. But she asked. She knew she had to ask. And that it would take asking to get what she wanted. And she began by asking for the simpler things first, before she asked for the real thing. Because to ask Oga to come to a banquet is the same ask. But it's probably easier than what she wanted to ask for. Because what she wanted to ask for was an impossibility. She wanted to ask for God to change his decree. And in those days, the kings don't change their decree. Once they have decreed a thing, that's it. That's it. The only way to counter it is to get them to issue another decree that gives you the power or the privilege to do something about it. But they are not known to change what they say or what they have approved or what they have allowed. But you see in that case again that asking saved the situation. But the timing of our asking is one of the things we learn from that. And that should further encourage us, convince us, motivate us in this asking business. That if you can't conceive it, then maybe you shouldn't ask. But as long as you can conceive it, asking can deliver it. As long as you can conceive it, as long as your heart can carry it, as long as your faith can handle it, asking can put it in your hands. Asking can put it in your hands. Okay, are we still together? It's a VIP session, it's a bit quiet. Can you talk to me, please? Let's hear from you. Hello there.
Yes, you're here, Doctor.
We are following you, sir.
Yes, talk to me.
Closely.
Talk to me. I want to hear your side of it. I want to hear your side. It's
Hello?
not meant to be. Hello? It's not meant to be a lecture. So share with me, add to what I've said or subtract from it or give me a different perspective. We need to round up the VIP now so that we can move to the, so let's have one or two closing words here. One or two closing words, even if it is what, what is that significant takeaway for you from what we have discussed today, from this particular case? And how do you think this helps you or this will help you going forward? Can we have just one or two comments very quickly so we can move on? We need to cover some grounds on the other side. Yes.
Yeah, for me, I think the asking from Esther's story, I think I can see that it requires preparation, and then of course, who has the answer to give, not just anybody, the right person to ask.
Yes. Yes. All right. Great. So who else? Let's have one more comment and then we can wrap it up for the VIP session. One more comment.
Hello, this is Bibi.
Yes, Bibi, go ahead.
Simply put, fear is the death of ask. Fear.
Fear is the what?
The death.
Yeah, the death. Okay.
Death as like killing is the death of asking.
Is the death of asking. Yeah. Fear. If fear can hold you back or kill your disposition to ask or your willingness to ask, or or it can cripple your quest to ask, can cripple your quest to ask. So you're right. I mean, if you are afraid, all right, great. Tunji says here, everything we want is on the other side of fear. That's another way to put it. If you would ask, if you wouldn't allow fear to hold you back from taking action, from acting in faith, which is what asking requires, then, you can get everything you need, perhaps not everything you want. I will make some clarification between those two in a short while. Thank you, Bibi. Fear can cripple your ask. That's true. That's true. That's true. That's true. All right. So I think it's a good place to stop for the VIP session. Let me take off the slides and come in. Let me share another from another. Let me share what we have for today.
Hello, sir.
Hello. Yes.
Yeah, if I might just say something as you are preparing, I
Please.
just think, based on the last speaker, fear is the death of asking and all. But no matter what, and I'm speaking for myself here because I know my own kind of character.
Yes.
Since we know that this fear is the death of asking, we have to do everything to pass that fear, everything. Because based on this story you're talking about, this woman, we don't know the issues she had even the night before she came to ask. All the while she was thinking what she's going to ask. Even what you said about she's going to pass so many protocols, the king's guard, blah, 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 before she went to ask. But she finally, all we know is that she went to ask.
Yes.
All we know. And then what you said too, we need to, how did you put it? We should know that we're asking for what we are entitled for. So she didn't just go and say, give me my neighbor's land, for example.
Yes. Yes.
You know, she's going to ask for her own thing, even though the time has elapsed and all of that. You know, so yes, number one, you know, what you're asking for is not beyond you. I don't know how the word to say it.
Correct.
You know,
it's not, yeah. It's your entitlement.
It's not beyond what you're, yes, sir. So if we know that, no matter how small that entitlement is, we need to pass that boundary of fear. If not, because I just think about myself now. If I say, okay, I'm afraid, I can't go, and then what's now after talking about what's the worst thing that will happen, if we don't now get that thing, Uncle, or we now hear somebody else has gotten it, we'll be so upset with ourselves. You won't be able to even, I don't know how you even survive the remaining days and years, because I don't know that thing that you would have lost that will almost kill you. Imagine somebody else coming to ask for this woman's land. Oh, this woman is dead, though. You know, she has left 7 years. Can I have her land? What if the king gave to somebody else?
Yes.
And this woman now hears a week later, should have said, I would have gone.
Yes.
So I'm just talking to myself here, as in, I don't know if we have to do like Esther to fast for 3 days or.
Yeah, but you know,
yes,
but you know that, but you know what you are talking about are practical things that you and I have experienced.
Yes, sir.
There are things that we have experienced, which should tell you that we are the ones that have undermined ourselves. There are things we have experienced. We give those reasons, you know, somebody else will come and somebody else will make the demand. And then what we will now be saying is that there is favoritism. That's what we'll be saying, that they like one person more than us. But we had the opportunity to ask as well. We know what was holding us back. We know what our issues are. We will not say that, you know, we were dealing with some issues, but somebody who didn't have those issues or who was able to overcome those issues and stepped forward, you know, the person took the thing. Now we'll be lucky if the person didn't take our portion along with their own. You know, but many times this is what happens. You are right. I mean, Chisto, you are right. That's why, you know, I think it's tomorrow that we're really going to deal with that aspect of it, the aspect of, you know, the faith, all right, the aspect of the confidence, you know, the aspect of what must you ensure, all right, is in place so that it gives you that backbone to go and make the demand. You understand? Because it is easier to give up. It's very easy to give up. It's very, in fact, we will be the ones giving the reason on behalf of the person we are going to ask for. We will be the ones saying why the king will not give us the land. We have not asked the king. We will put ourselves in the place of the king and be conjuring all kinds of reasons, convincing ourselves why we must not go forward, when somebody else is convincing themselves why they should go forward. You know, and you will see it. One of, if I may add that here, and I want to commend this to us. If you are able to read the encounter of Jehoshaphat, when Jehoshaphat faced a major, you know, confrontation, when 3 kings ganged up, conspired, and rose against Jehoshaphat and Judah, what did Jehoshaphat do? He ran to God to ask. To ask. You can call it pray. Praying is asking. Now, but when we talk about that encounter, we often don't talk about why God answered in the affirmative, why he got more than he was asking for. Because he got more than he was asking for. Again, you can see he got more than he was asking for. What did Jehoshaphat go to ask for? Yes, Jehoshaphat went to ask for help. He didn't want, you know,
the wealth
to lose
of the war.
He went to ask for help. That these kings, we have done nothing to them. They just want to come and destroy us. Help us. And what did he get? He got the help. On top of the help,
He got sweatless help.
Can you estimate how much spoil they got? He said they were packing spoil for 3 days. They were packing spoil. That is the spoils of war. People who didn't fight any battle. They didn't fight at all. They didn't lift one finger. But all he did was to ask. But how did he ask? What did he ask for? When you look at it, he provided justification. There are 3 things that Jehoshaphat told God when he sat before God and he made the request. 3 things. When you x-ray every one of those things, there is no way that God would have turned him down. No way that God would have turned him down. What are the 3 things? Number 1, he reminded God. He said, look, these 3 kings, when we were coming out of Egypt, we met them, we would have destroyed them. You told us not to destroy them. You told us you had made a promise to them and that you will spare them. And you said we shouldn't destroy them. Said now, you said we should not destroy them. They want to destroy us now. Is that how you are going to be looking at us? Number 1. Now, you tell me, if you are the one, is that not enough justification? That's number 1. Number 2, he reminded God. He said, Solomon, our father, prayed when he was dedicating this temple, the same temple that he ran to go and pray. He said, when Solomon dedicated this temple, he prayed. And there is a particular aspect of that prayer. And he quoted that aspect. He said, Solomon said to you that anytime we face any situation like this, anytime people rise against us and they want to destroy us, he said, if we look towards the temple, not even if we come physically to the temple, he said, if we look towards the temple and we pray and we ask you to help us, that you will help us. And you said at that time, you answered Solomon's prayer. You said it is documented. That's number 2. And then he gave the 3rd reason. He says, sir, this land that we are on, you gave it to our forefathers. They didn't collect the land from anybody. They didn't drive anybody out. It's land that you gave to them, is their property, is our entitlement. He said, so are you going to look at these people and just watch so that they can drive us out from the land that you gave us? Those were the 3 points. The justification, the basis of Jehoshaphat's prayer. He prayed a prayer of entitlement. And God had to answer on the spot. On the spot. Because after he kept quiet, they waited there. You have to answer also. On the spot. God said to them, don't worry. You have convinced me. This battle is my own battle. It's not yours. You won't need to fight. Why? Because they put God on the spot. There is none of those things. You couldn't fault them. So, but some other people will go to God or go to others and be making excuses that we undermine them. We, instead of advancing their own cause or their own case. Now, one of the things that we get from this also is that, and this is part of your preparation, by the way, this is part of the preparation that we're talking about. You just don't go around asking people for things. You think through it, you prepare. You must convince yourself that, 1, what you need is really a need. It's not a want. It's not a nice to have. You must Convince yourself that you have credible reasons that will make the person that has it in his possession or her possession to release it to you. It isn't when you come before the king now that you are now going to be thinking, what's the reason I should give this king? Or if this king were to ask me a question, or what should I say to the king? Or no, 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 no. You would have settled that before even deciding to go forward to ask. So I imagine that this woman had done that. She knew she was the owner of the land. She knew she could convince the king. And one important aspect of it, which I think that we shouldn't miss out on, why is it that it was when she stepped forward to go and ask, she was the one being discussed in front of the king? Why? That's how at times, the fact that you refrain from asking, you undermine yourself. Because you don't know the factors that may be working in your favor, just waiting for you to step in at that time, to go for the kill. All right, that's like a bonus. So thank you very much for all those wonderful, and incisive comments. Great, you see what, all right, so yesterday, we looked at the lack-busting three-letter word. So today, I want to go a bit further to look at how to liberate yourself, by asking. We want to drill down a bit further on this asking thing. So come with me, let's look at one or two things. And we have been saying the one simple thing you must know to do is to ask. One simple thing you must know to do. So it is your primary responsibility. It's not my responsibility to ask on your behalf. It's nobody's responsibility to ask on your behalf. He said, if you ask, you will receive. It's you. It's not me. It's not anybody else. You can ask me, yeah, but you must be the one to take the initiative, to take the responsibility to ask. It's not somebody asking on your behalf. Primarily, there can be instances, of course, where people ask on your behalf, where you even ask people to ask for things on your behalf. There can be such instances. And you do that consistent with what we have been talking about, because those people are in a position stronger than you to ask for what you really want. All right. So instead of going direct, you can ask those people, all right, because they are in possession of the necessary impetus, the necessary standing to give you access to what you want. So it's your primary responsibility. You have to take responsibility. That woman took responsibility. Esther took responsibility, even though in the case of Esther, her uncle had to say to make her realize that this is your responsibility. Don't think of shirking it. This is your responsibility. You are not where you are by chance. You are where you are for a season like this. So you better rise up and do whatever you need to do, all right, to ensure. It was risky business for her, but she took responsibility. She took responsibility. I'm going to ask. At the worst, I will prepare. But I will ask. If I perish, I perish. I will ask. It's almost like saying, I would rather die than not ask. Especially when I know who to ask. And I know that that person has what it takes. Okay? And so this was what we were looking at yesterday. the blank check, as it were. And we see that no one is exempted from asking. It's not the special prerogative of anyone. It's not a special privilege for any set of people. Asking from certain particular people may be a privilege. For example, if you were praying to God, if you were asking God, it's privilege. Not everybody can come before him, all right, to just ask for things. Okay? You have to ask in the name of Jesus. But like I said yesterday, you don't have to ask in the name of Jesus when you're talking to somebody else. Okay? So it's a principle that works with God and it works with man. All right? So no one is exempted from asking. You can exempt yourself, however. When you fail to ask, you exempt yourself. You exempt yourself from that principle, and therefore you exempt yourself from the benefits that the principle has to offer. So many of us have no one to blame for where we are, for the encounters that we have experienced, for the outcomes of our lives till this moment, but ourselves. Why? Because we have refused to ask. We have refused to take a responsibility. We have refused to write a check, to write an amount on the blank check, because it remains a blank check. So who wants our needs to be met? And I say here, if you want your needs to be met, if you want to have your needs met, you had better be ready to ask. You had better be ready to ask. Remember that 1 Corinthians 4:7, we said that there is nothing you have that you have not received. So we are who we are by the things that we receive from time to time. We are who we are by the things that we receive from time to time. And if we want to receive, we have been told that what we need to do is to ask. So we also have the privilege to control what is added to us, what we receive. And therefore, we have the privilege to shape who we are through exercise of the privilege to ask for what we desire. I love that. The truth about your needs, and so maybe here I will separate needs from wants. If you know how to ask, you will have all your needs met. Not your wants, your needs. Not your wants, your needs. There are needs and there are wants. The needs are crucial to have. The wants are nice to have. Until your needs are met, you shouldn't be thinking about meeting your wants, because that would be a waste. And God is not a waster. He doesn't support waste. And the average person does not support waste as well, especially when they know that what they are going to add to you is going to foster waste, is going to promote waste. If you know how to ask, you will have all your needs met. That looks like a sweeping statement, but it is true nonetheless. And it's not because I say so, it's because we're following principles. And principles can't go wrong when you follow them. So it's important that we master our lack, that we be the master over our lack and over our needs. Remember, yesterday we looked at lack as a persistent or lingering need. Your need isn't supposed to be there forever. As some people will say, it isn't supposed to be growing with your age. Hey, all right? It's supposed to be transient. They happen and they are met. They happen and they are met. But when they are lingering, you are entering the era of challenge, of trouble. And that's why we need to build up ourselves in this manner so that we can prevent that from getting to that stage. And if they ever get to that stage, we know what to do. And so these are some of the benefits that you are bound to appropriate if you can build your capacity in this area. Growth, because you can add to yourself by asking. When you look at some of the examples that we have considered, can you see growth, the prospects for growth? If that young ruler had done what he needed to do, he would have grown. He would have increased. Esther grew. She became even more powerful. All right. Now, the woman who was given her land back experienced growth. She didn't have the land for 7 years. She probably thought she has, some other person thought she had lost it. If she wasn't given the land, she can cry and cry and cry there, to see whether the king will budge. But as long as it's added back to her, is growth, progress, maturity. Because the more you know how, the more you are in control of your life, the more you are in control of the outcomes of your life, the more you know how to make things happen for yourself, the more confident you would be to approach life itself. Good success. Joshua 1:8, prosperity. Peace, very important. Peace. Because when you have what we are talking about, you will not fret like the average person will. You won't fear like the average person will. Why? You know what to do. When there is a lack, when there is a need, you know what to do. You know your options. You understand where to look. You find it easier to meet your needs compared with the average person. Fulfillment, because you are in charge of your life. You are in charge of your life. Perfection. And I like that. I got that from James 1 and verse 2 to 4. And you win. Ask to win. You win. Did the Shunammite woman win or not? She won. Was the young rich ruler potentially a winner? Yes, he was. But he didn't have he didn't have the heart. He didn't have the understanding to take advantage, despite that he was given what he requested. I'm going to be saying something about that you need to know as well, as a result of all of this. Let's look at a few more things. Let's expand, this discourse a bit. Let's go to this James chapter 1 and verse 5 and see the same thing sort of reported in a different fashion. And here it says, if any of you means everyone, isn't it? If any of you is the same thing as everyone, okay, lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him. So if you lack wisdom, ask. If you lack wisdom, ask the one who has wisdom. If you lack wisdom, ask the one who has it in his possession. That's what is saying there. So I'd like to make this statement to challenge you and I to take the driver's seat of our lives. It's within your right and power to determine the outcomes of your life. If you can ask for things and they are given to you, can't you? Doesn't that put you in a position to determine the outcomes of your life? It does, except if I'm missing something. And to do that just by asking. Just by asking. But let's come back to this statement once. Look at, there are 4 things I want to highlight in this statement. Any of you, which is everyone. So this applies to everyone. It's always good to reemphasize it. Lacks is the second thing. So we're talking about any kind of lack, actually. It's not limited to wisdom. But for this particular reference, if you lack wisdom, ask from God. What this tells you is not that this principle is being restricted to any person. As we saw yesterday, this is throwing light on the fact that one of the things you look at to know who to ask is somebody who is in a position to give what you want. Don't go and ask the wrong person who does not have it. They would easily and rightly tell you, sorry, I don't have it. I can't give it. They can't give what they don't have. So if it is wisdom you are looking for, it's God that you need to ask. But the underlying principle, the foundation principle, is if you lack, if anyone lacks, they should ask. So if it is counsel you lack, there are people to ask. If it is fund you lack, there are people to ask. Okay? I hope that comes out clearly. And wisdom is the third thing there, and ask is the fourth thing. 4 very instructive things in that one single statement. But, you know, like I said, I distill that underlying principle, which is expressed on the screen. If anyone or any of you lacks, let him ask. Asking is what gets you the solution for lack. Asking is what sets in motion the resolution of lack. If any of you or if anyone lacks, let him ask. Let him ask. So don't be afraid to ask. Don't be ashamed to ask. It is a principle. It is a principle. Now, asking is both a privilege and it is a source of power. When somebody says to you, if you lack, or indeed, if you find anyone who is grappling with a lack or the other, let the person ask. It's a privilege. Is that all that we need to do? Does it apply to everybody? So I don't need to do anything special. So what a privilege. It's a blank check. Fill it in. If you believe it, if you don't believe it, you won't act on it and it won't work. But it's powerful because if you follow it, it will deliver. And that power is rooted in the fact that it's a principle. Principles are powerful. Why? Because they tell you what to do in order to get what result. And every time you do it, you get the result. And it doesn't matter. Principles have no respect for personalities. Principles don't have respect for personalities. That's why even, Jesus, God operates by them. Because they answer to everyone. Principles answer to everyone. They state conditions and they state outcomes. You meet the conditions, you get the outcome. It doesn't matter whether you are white or black, whether you are old or you are young, whether you are new or you have been at it for years. Principles are powerful. Asking is rooted on a principle. Therein lies its source of power. So if you do these things, you will get the same result as if I did that. They won't answer to me differently, except, of course, by reason of the depth of our skill in the area. Because principles are answer to everyone, but some people are more skillful in the engagement, in the implementation of certain principles than others. By reason of use, some people know how to make certain principles produce more than you. I mean, there are two farmers, for example. It is the same principle. If you give me an orange seed and you hold an orange seed, if we do the same thing, both of us will get harvest. If I give you 10 seeds and I have 10 seeds, if both of us plant, both of us will have harvest, assuming we know what to do minimally. However, with your 10 seeds, you can get 10 times more harvest than I would get. Why? Because you are more skilled at using the seeds. So the principle answer, but the more skillful one will get better results. So I can ask and get results. You can ask and get results, but I can ask and get far better results than you. Why? Because I know how to use it more than you know how to use it. So there is a skill dimension of it. So what we are talking about is a privilege, and it offers access to great power. And that power is rooted in the principles that underlie it. That power is the guarantee that the privilege will produce for you. So what we looked at is the one thing to do. We said is ask. But let me quickly talk about something here. That ask also, in a way, there are three kinds of. He said, if you ask, you would find, you will receive. If you seek, you would find. If you knock, he said the door will be open to you, all in one statement. There are three expressions, three actions, all in one statement. All of them guaranteed to deliver. Guess what? Those three actions are the same thing. What do I mean? Seeking is asking. Knocking is asking. What's the difference? Like I said, I wrote a book on this I promise most likely tomorrow while we're chatting, I will post a link so that you can download, your copies of the book. I will give to each one free the e-copies. And when they are loaded on Amazon, you may be able to order hard copies for those who would like to have hard copies. The title of the book is Ask, Seek, Knock. And there I drill down into the detailed differences between ask, seek, and knock, but they're pretty much the same thing. It's just intensity. So asking is a bit more straightforward. It's expressing a basic desire. Expressing a basic desire. To seek is a moderate desire. There is greater intensity. There's greater level of desperation. There's probably a greater sense of urgency. All right. There's probably more at stake than just what you would ordinarily ask. Okay. Somebody was speaking to me earlier today, and he gave an example of somebody was trying to get something he had asked for something. And the person, the next time he was speaking to the person said, got a bit agitated and say, look, I'm not working for you. I'm just trying to help you, blah, 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 and that kind of thing. And, he immediately got uncomfortable, okay, and pulled back and was asking, so how does one deal with somebody in that kind of situation? And one of the examples I was giving, I said, well, if you're asking, you have been speaking on phone, you have been exchanging messages on phone. I said, what you don't do is to give up, because that's what you're about getting to now. I don't want to offend the person. I don't want to be ridiculed, blah, blah, blah. No. Your motivation is what you want to get. And the fact that you have a justification, you are not asking him to do you a favor. There is justification for what you're asking him, and he's in a position to provide it. Okay. So I said, if you cut out the phone discussion, the next time he sees you, you appear in his office and they tell him that you are waiting to see him. So the first one is asking. When you appear in his office, you have upgraded to seeking. Because then he knows that what you are asking is more serious. If he didn't take you seriously earlier on, he will know that, oh, this person is really very serious. He begins to take you seriously. Why? The intensity of your expression, has increased. And if he doesn't respond at that level, and you go and sit down in his office, okay, such that he's going out, he's coming in, he's seeing you, he will know that that's like knocking. All right, that's a level where there is a bit of desperate desire, desperation. So, because when you are knocking, it's not the same energy that you take to knock that you'll be using to, to ask. To ask is the very basic level of making a demand. All right, or making a request. But when it comes to seeking, you get more desperate. You're looking for every way, to ensure that the person knows you are serious, and every opportunity you are trying to create to make sure you get what you want. And those who succeed more than others is because this is the expression of persistence. Okay, not just asking casually, and asking in a way that even the person you are asking knows that you are not serious. And so they have no reason to want to give you when they are not convinced that you are serious. Okay, so that's an important aspect as well of how you ask. Because at times you may need to display higher level of desperation. And there is nothing to be shy about it. It is more about what you want to get than about what it takes to get it. There is too much of self-preservation, much of which amounts even to pride. And it keeps us from accessing what we otherwise would have received. Let me begin to round up for this session by looking at something very important. And I want to take it from this verse of scripture, which I believe everyone knows. It said, let us therefore come boldly to the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. Again, you can see they are not in time of want, in time of need. So what do I want to draw attention to here? The things that make your ask potent. You want to ask for your ask to deliver. There are 4 things that are important for you to think about. Now, as you are conscious in the exercise of this privilege, these things become a part of you. So they don't need a lot of formality, all right? But they're just things to check. But they become a part of you with use, with exercise, and its accessibility, disposition or attitude, possession, and application. What do I mean? Accessibility. The person who wants the source of supply for your lack, is it easily accessible? Is it easily accessible? Or is it accessible? Chiso talked about that woman, how she must have passed through some protocol to get to the king. The fact is that she got to the king. She must have assessed that it was possible, knowing the environment, that it was possible to get to the king, that she, as an ordinary person, citizens, could get to the king. So accessibility is important. You want to ask? You have an idea who to ask? Can you access the person? Because if you can't access, then that option is useless. Accessibility. That guy ran to Jesus. Jesus was accessible. He could reach him. He knew he could reach him. He ran to him, knelt beside him. Sir, this is what I'm looking for. Accessibility. Esther knew that it was possible, even though it came with certain protocol. That was why she had to fast, because she knew that she must never attempt to appear before the king without an invitation. So she had to prepare. But the king was accessible. So is the supplier for your lack accessible? Because if not, then you may have to look in another direction. All right. Number 2 is what's the disposition of the person that you have in mind. Is the person willing to help? Or will the person be willing to consider your request? Can you gauge that? Is the person the kind of person who will be moved by your request? And in all those instances, I believe the people who went forward to ask must have thought they were. That's what the mercy, that you would obtain mercy at the throne of grace, that's what it talks about. The willingness of the one that you are asking to consider your request, to be favorably disposed to your request? Can you sway this person? All right. And then possession. What you need to address your lack, the supply, is it in this person's hands? Can you get it from this person? Does this person possess what you need so that you don't waste your time? Can this person put what you need in your hands or within your reach? It's important if your ask must be potent, that is, must deliver into your hands. And we have been saying it. Don't go and ask somebody who does not have what you need. So it's part of your responsibility to gauge before you go. The person I'm looking at, is this person likely? I mean, you may not be able to say 100%, but you should be able to say, you should feel comfortable that I think the person can. The chances are very likely that the person has, or I know, I have seen it, this person has it. If you're asking for counsel and somebody has been doing what you are doing, for 20 years, I mean, And the final one is application. Do you know how to apply the supply to meet your need? You may be wondering, what does this mean? Let me draw your attention to what happened yesterday. Yesterday, I said that the rich young ruler got the answer that he wanted. He went to the master and said, what must I do? And the master told him what he must do. Guess what? He took delivery of what he must do, but he didn't know how to apply it. He didn't apply it. What he was told is what I would be told by the same person if I went to the same master to ask for the same thing. The answer I was given wasn't peculiar to him. It was peculiar to his need. It was the answer to his need, but he didn't know how to apply it. Otherwise, it would have been resolved. The eternal life would have been firmly in his hands. So what you're asking for, you must know that when you receive it, you can apply it. That's when grace turns to help. Because grace doesn't resolve the need. It is help that resolves the need. But grace must turn to help in order for the need to resolve. Otherwise, there will still be grace, but the need will still be there. Why? Because there is a gap between your having access to the answer and being able to apply the answer. And it would be a shame to go through that process only to get to the point where you take delivery of the ability, but you can't apply it to resolve the need. And we have seen a case of how that happened. So I will close by what I call the ask first principle. The ask first principle. So I'm saying ask first. If you never ask, you will perpetually lack. And you need to ask, how many things can you provide for yourself? We have been told that we are what we are, or whatever we are, is because of what we have received. So why do you want to keep looking for how to provide everything yourself instead of asking? Ask first. Don't give reasons why people may not oblige. Ask first. It is better to ask and not receive than not to ask at all. If you know the things that we're talking about over the course of these 5 days, you will not mind if you ask and people don't, and you don't get. And the reason is you will get more times when you ask than when you don't get. So if the chances of getting are far higher than the chances of not getting, then I will be stupid not to keep asking and not to keep looking for ways of improving the way that I ask, how I use that privilege to increase my capacity to ask, to increase the skill to ask. Because as I grow in it, I get more added to me. I meet my needs a lot easier. When you ask, the chance that you will get is greater than zero. And as we have seen, when you ask and you really know how to ask, you will typically get back far more than you are asking for. That's what we have seen thus far from the examples we have looked at. That's what we have seen. I have the same testimony. That's what we have seen. I did ask for certain things earlier this year to even prove that this idea that I was given is credible. And what I got was more than what I asked for in the final analysis. Not of my own doing, but from the same source that obliged. So it works. And I bet you, if I didn't ask those things, I wouldn't have them today. But I have them. And I'm using them. And I think this should be the final slide for tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't ask, then you won't receive. And you will be at the mercy of what's given to you. The beauty about asking is that you can say what you want. It's not that you won't receive if you don't ask. At least you won't receive what you want. Nobody will respect the priorities of your life. If they give you anything, it will be out of their own free will. And the things you are given may have nothing to do with the needs of your life. So you'll be at the mercy of what people volunteer or decide when they do. Why would you want to take that position when you can be in charge? As we said before, you can take the driver's seat of your life. That's a better place to be. So take charge instead of, and not be played out. And these things are possible, as we have seen. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. That's it for today. Are there any questions or any comments or any additions? If we can take one or two very quickly. And, once again, once we are done, the video replay would be put together. Please, like I said, join the Facebook group. You would have access to the video there, and you would have access to these slides as well there. By tomorrow morning, I'll begin to put up the the guide, like the workbook, so that you can begin to, apply these things to yourself. Begin to ask yourself certain questions, and begin to, as it were, outline how you want to implement, these things in your personal lives, all right. Any comments or questions? Please go ahead, so that while we try to wrap this up.
Thank you so much, sir. I've been really pretty quiet because I'm listening from work. But this particular part of the ask as an entitlement speaks a lot to me and my situation. And especially when there's a large thing at stake and I can't get it for myself. The main thing concerning this is in the knowing. The entitlement speaks to your knowing. And then that leads to a full persuasion. You have to be fully persuaded before you. It's a full persuasion, not a microscopic one. And your full persuasion gives you the boldness with which you speak. Because in the asking with entitlement, there are some emotions. So what I've been doing is, highlighting the emotions that go with the ask. With the different kind of ask. There are emotions that go with it. There are emotions. So one of the emotions that goes with this one, just like any form of asking, this one has to be with, be strong and of a good courage. There's something about courage, and there's something being about a good courage. Because I remember a situation where you were sort of like part of the ask. And it's my entitlement. I was so timid. I was so afraid. And I had a word, and it changed the dynamics of the asking. And that was, being fully persuaded, and being strong and of a good courage. And strength does not speak to physical strength, mental strength. And the mental strength as I was moving, because if you're talking about Shunammite woman, as she was moving, there will be more than enough discouragement. Just like, just like Elisha and Elijah, your master is going to be taken. There was a lot of discouragement on the way, but he saw, because you spoke as you were speaking, what are you seeing? When you see the end result, it's going to propel you, it's going to strengthen you mentally. And there's an ear around the scar asking of an entitlement. Even when you are speaking with all boldness. You are speaking with all persuasion. You are fully persuaded because you know that we know. You know that you are going to get that because of the entitlement, sort of like, and not entitlement mentality. You are entitled to it. So the way your vocals, your body language is going to be speaking, is going to be speaking a lot of boldness. The Bible says, we can say the Bible says, let us come boldly. So that is the kind of emotion that you come with when you are doing an asking for an entitlement. And that is what actually broke me through the knowing. You have to be fully persuaded, and you have to know. And the knowing and the fully persuasion, they will propel you with all boldness. And even your vocal will be saying, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. All right. I mean, that's what, for example, the Bible was saying, talking about Abraham. Like I said, we're going to deal with that. I think we're going to talk more about that tomorrow, because I'll be running tomorrow through 7 dimensions of, asking. And so really, I mean, the bottom line when you're talking about persuasion is faith. Okay. The Bible tells you that Abraham was strong in faith. He was fully persuaded, he was strong in faith. His full persuasion was an expression, of his faith. And he wasn't ready to consider that something was impossible. All right. It's the kind of disposition that this woman had. She didn't consider what you and I would consider impossible. She didn't consider it to be impossible, and and one shouldn't make light of what she did at all. And you are right. She came from a position, and that's why the aspect of preparation, okay, because preparation also helps to secure your faith, ensure that the faith is in place that will carry you through.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Yes.
Preparation is like counting the cost. Just don't go and appear before the king and make a mess of yourself. And just saying because they say you should go and ask. No. All right. But when you are fully prepared, you step forth and you make your demands with that confidence. And guess what? When you ask people for something with confidence, it helps you. They are impressed. You get it because of the confidence that you display.
Yeah.
You understand? A woman went to Jesus. He said, "Sir, my daughter is vexed with the spirit." He said, "Please come and help me." You know what Jesus said to her? Amazing. Jesus said that it is not appropriate to give the children's bread to dogs. I don't know how many of us are on this platform. If you went to a so-called Messiah, in quotes, and you said, "My daughter is vexed with the spirit," and you are not lying, it's a serious matter. And then he responds and says, "It is not right to give the children's bread to dogs." I'm sure a lot of us won't stand it. Yeah, so because I now came to you, I've now become a dog. All right. But you know what the woman did? To show you that she was prepared. He said, the woman replied her. She didn't even make reference to whether it was degrading or whatever. These are the things that prevent us from getting access.
Sir. Yes, sir.
All right. She didn't make any reference. We would be busy, yes, talking about
that's a distraction. He's focused.
The woman immediately responded. He said, "But sir, even the dogs eat the crumbs from the children's table." And Jesus said, "Wow, I've not seen this level of faith. Just go. What you ask, you have already collected it." So whether it's your entitlement or it's not your entitlement, even in that case, faith. But she knew that she was entitled to it. She could convince herself that she was entitled, and she demonstrated it. It was as if she was ready. That this man who is a Jew is going to tell her that because she's not a Jew, maybe he will not help her, which was all that Jesus was trying to say. All that Jesus was trying to say was that you guys, we don't relate together. If I'm going to help, I'm supposed to help my own people before you come and start accusing me of what is not. And she said she made a justification that Jesus himself could not fall. Because truly, if the dogs eat the crumbs from the table, is it not the same bread? It's the same bread. It is the same bread. And Jesus said, "You have it. It's yours. It's yours." So you see, preparation, faith, conviction of your entitlement. It is not the person you are asking that should feel that you are entitled. You must convince yourself first that you are entitled.
That's it.
And when you project that, people respect that.
Yes, sir.
People respect that.
Yeah.
In fact, the fact that you are bold enough to even come and ask for that land, people respect that. In vernacular, they say, "This woman is bold. This woman is bold. I like this kind of boldness. Go and give her what she wants. Go and give her what she wants." Thank you very much for raising that. Thank you very much for raising that. All right. Any final word? Otherwise, thank you once again for joining this evening. I hope it's been incremental in terms of focus and value. If you haven't joined, please go and apply. Join the Facebook group. Let's continue our chat there and access a number of other, materials there as well.
Can I suggest something, sir?
Yes, please go ahead.
Can we all just put it into practice in the little things? Somewhere where we have given up on the ask, the situation are sitting down. Let's just practicalize it and see how it goes. So yesterday, I had done an ask that I was a bit timid again about. I wasn't fully persuaded. I did ask, and I was already thinking that I wasn't going. So I went back, and it looked really impossible. And it was all a lie. It was all in my mind.
Yes.
And it's been traumatizing me, and I went back, put it boldly on the table. Do this, do this, do this. Is it possible? I said, oh, yes. And I was thinking, B, and you're already killing yourself about this. In fact, it was nothing to the person. Nothing, absolutely. So as we're doing, as we're in the meeting, when I had a little break, I went for another ask. I revisited all my asks that I've told myself was no, even when they didn't say no, or the one I didn't push enough. And the door is just giving way. And all of the tensions I've created for myself, they all dissolve. So I will encourage somebody, ask tonight. Go.
Yes, is important. What I thought was that, it's important to begin to put these things to use. These things will speak to you at your individual levels, but it's good to act on them. In almost all cases where I have had, discussions, not even as deeply, with people, they have been challenged, they have been motivated to act, and if it's okay for you, then you start with the little things. Start with the ones that you're a bit more confident about. And so you build your confidence. But what you must understand is that these things work. And, somebody else is adding voice to it. And I know that there are a couple of people on the platform, who have exercised these things. And I mean, they wish they could share. I mean, and if they're comfortable enough, they might share before we are done, and they have seen results. They have begun to get results. And the more you do something and you get results, the more you are encouraged, all right, to do more and to push yourself more, to go for, more substantive things. In all of that process, what happens is that you are beginning to develop an approach to life that puts you in control, that makes you more confident, to deal with issues, to address your needs. So you move away from where you used to be, from that timid self, from that person who has neglected some of these provisions, from that person who knew these provisions but didn't quite believe in them. They didn't believe they can work or that they will work for them, and as you put them to use based on enhanced understanding, and as they work for you, all right, you experience a shift. I mean, look at all the things I said. You grow in maturity in terms of your ability to handle situations, particularly situations of need. And you are also in a position to help others, So please go ahead, and you can also, those are some of the things you can share on the Facebook group, please. You can also post, some of these encounters. You can ask questions. We'll be there to answer the questions. Like I said, you can introduce yourself. You can, raise issues. Let's make it, if we feel that thus far it's been worthwhile, and there's so much to gain. Let's show it as we participate through those channels. So enjoy the rest of your day, as the case may be. Thank you for joining again today. I look forward to being with you tomorrow, again, starting with the VIP session at 5 p.m. West African time, and then, the general session going on to, from 6 p.m. West African time as well. God bless you and have a good night.
Thank you.